is 10141. Why? Because R1 first searches the routing table on the underlay and finds that the outgoing interface to reaching to this quad 4 network is ETH00. Because of that, it uses the 10141 as the source IP of the packet. And then in the content of the Lisp locator ID separation protocol, we can find this mapping 192.168.10/24 with the routing locator as the quad 1. Okay, don't forget that this is 192.168.10 is the EID, okay, prefix. Let me to show you. First, we should find this information in the Lisp register message. Here in the Lisp part, we have some flags. We will talk about these flags in the future videos, but here, as you can see, mapping record 1 EID prefix 192.168.10/24 with TTL of 0. This means that connected to the router 1 XTR. And as you can see here, we have the RLOOK of quad 1, local RLOOK of quad 1 with priority of 1 and weight of 100 that I configured before. Also, as you can see here, we have a hash of the key for authentication. It's so easy. Okay, let me to add here in the Lisp content, for example, in Lisp content, we have EID prefix, we have RLOOK, we have authentication data, and also we have priority configured. Priority, okay, is 1, and also weight. I configured weight as 100. We will talk about the priority and weight. Don't worry about these features. Okay, and then for example, we should configure the mapping server. Okay, weight. Very good. Look at here, R1 advertises this update to R4, but R4 doesn't accept it. Why? Because the port 4342 doesn't enable on the R4. Because of that, R4 doesn't accept it and sends the destination port unreachable ICMP message to the R1, also to the R2 and also to the R3. This is the Lisp map register from the R1. And also, don't forget that R2 and R3 now is advertising their EIDs to the R4, and R4 also should send back to the R2 and R3 ICMP destination port unreachable. So easy. Now, it's time of configuring the mapping server or mapping resolve and also mapping resolver. Let me first configure for example, R2 and R3, and after that we can configure the R4. In R2, we have the similar configuration, en conft. Okay, we should start with the router Lisp. Here, one of the important things is that when you are configuring router Lisp, you can configure for example, Lisp ID. Lisp ID is a feature such as the OSPF process ID. We can configure some process of Lisp when we need. We will experience this feature in the future videos. For example, in multi-tenancy videos. Router Lisp. And after that, we should configure IPv4 ITR and then IPv4 ETR. Okay, and then IPv4 ITR map. For example, map resolver is quad 4. After that, IPv4 map server, IPv4 ETR map server is quad 4 with the key of Cisco, for example. Then database mapping 192.168.20/24 with the routing locator of quad 2 or with the priority of 1 and weight of 100. This is the configuration of the XTR2. Finally, in router 3, let me show you the router 3's configuration. Again, router Lisp, then IPv4 ITR, then IPv4 ETR. After that, IPv4, for example, ITR map resolver is quad 4. And after that, IPv4 ETR map server is quad 4 with the key of Cisco. okay? And then we need to configure a database mapping for 192.168.30/24 with the routing locator of quad 3 with the key of Cisco. For example, with the priority of 1 and weight of 100. That's it. Okay, and also we can configure another command here, as I mentioned before, in the configuration of the LISP. You know that we have one command, IPv4 map request source. Let me start from the router 1, router LISP again, okay, IPv4 map request source, okay, is the, for example, quad 1. This is the source IP in the map request quad 1. I will show you this command, the result of this command, and also in R2 conft IPv4 map request source in the router LISP, okay, and then IPv4 map request source is, for example, quad 4, quad 2, because this is the IP address on the R2. And then in R3, I'm using this command enconft router LISP IPv4 map request source is the, for example, quad 3. That's it. Now it's time of configuring the router 4. Let me to show you how we can configure the MS or MR, and you know that this is the mapping server and also mapping resolver, the router 4. Okay, it's the configuration of MS and MR is so easy. First, we should go to the router LISP mode, same as the XTRs, router LISP. Then we need to use the site command, site, for example, site name. We have in this scenario 3 sites, site 1, site 2, and site 3, or any number, any name that you want. Site, for example, site 1. This is this site, site 2, site 3, and also under the site 1, we should use the authentication key command. Authentication key command is used for authentication. You know that in R1 I configured IPv4 ETR map server, then IP address of the map server, and after that key, for example, authentication key. And you know that this authentication key should be used for authentication only. And here you should configure the same authentication key. Because of that, I'm using the, for example, authentication key Cisco. The next command is which locator is allowed to advertise the update. This is not mandatory, this is optional, but I'm using it here. Allowed, look at here, allowed locator. If you want, you can, for example, define the locator, allowed locator quad 1. But in this scenario, I'm going to not use this feature. Only authentication key is mandatory. It's for example, suitable for this scenario. After that, we should define the EID prefix that we expect to receive from this site. EID prefix is 192.168.10/24. That's it. So easy. Okay, this is the site 1, and also we need 2 other sites. Site 2. First site, the second site is site 2. Authentication key, as you saw in the configuration of XTRs, is Cisco for all of the sites. Because of that, authentication key is Cisco, and then EID prefix we expect that receiving from this site is 192.168.20/24. And also we have site 3. Authentication key Cisco, EID prefix is 192.168.30/24. This is the configuration of the MS for this all of the sites, or MR. And also we need to enabling MS role and also MR role. IPv4, for example, map server, and then IPv4 map resolver. That's it. So easy. Let me to show you how we can configure the router 4. Router 4 is our mapping server and also mapping resolver. Let me to configure it. We should configure the router 4 with the router LISP command, starting with the router LISP. Okay. Then, for example, using the site 1. This is the site 1. It's better to capture the link between router 1 and router 4. Let me to capture this link. And after that, we can continue the configuration of the, for example, router 4. Very good. and here is the configuration